Welcome back to the Be Here Village podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin McGrayus. I'm a mother of three, I'm a doula, and I'm the founder of Be Her Village, a gift registry where parents can register for the support they need instead of just baby stuff. Today's episode is going to be a little different. It is late August, and I feel like I've been meditating on community, and I have some things to say to you and to think about and to sort of get out of my brain and into the world about community. So, where do I begin? One of the things that I want to talk about is this idea that you have to be a villager to have a village. I don't know if that's like a phrase. I don't know if that's a phrase that exists, but that's sort of the thing that's knocking around in my head, or if it's like a wrong version of an actual phrase that exists. But this idea essentially that in order to have the village show up when we need them, we also must show up as the village for others when they need it. And this is something that I'm really feeling in my older parenthood, right? So I know that this is a very pregnancy and baby and birth focused podcast and company and endeavor. But what I find is that the lessons that I struggled with when I was pregnant and giving birth, I am learning now that my children are older, and I'm so glad that I'm learning them now, both because I can share with all of you, but also because I get to share with my children now so that when they go through parenthood, they don't make these same mistakes that I did. So, community is such a, an incredibly important part of my life. It is like the roots that I have put down accidentally, not even realizing in my town, in my neighborhood, in my children's school, in my life here where I live are so deep. It is where we live and where we are raising our children. And the reason why we love where we live is not just because it's in a great location, not because it's in a safe neighborhood, although I have more things to say about what makes our neighborhood safe. It is because of the people that come together and support one another. It is because of the friendships that we have cultivated. It is because of the availability of support whenever we need it. And part of that availability is because we, meaning my husband and I and my family, we show up for other people. So this idea of like it takes a village, right? So sometimes there's this feeling of like it takes a village. Well, where's mine? Why is my village not here? Why is my village letting me, struggle through this moment? Why, excuse me, why are people not showing up for me? And part of the answer there's two parts I would like to talk about. Number one is how have you shown up for others? And number two is how willing are you to receive? I have struggled with both of those. So let's talk about number one. How willing are you to show up for other people? It's sort of like the idea of pay it forward comes to mind, where we need to show up without expectation for others. And I have to say it feels so good. It feels so good to help within the boundaries that feel good for yourself, right? There is also like a tendency, especially for women, especially for moms, to overextend and to help too much and to take on responsibilities that aren't our own. But when you have established healthy boundaries for yourself and you are able to lend a hand, when you can drop a meal off, when you can donate to somebody's cause, when you can give a kid a ride home from a sport, when you can go for a walk with a friend in need, when you can show up for somebody in a way that is, not an enormous burden on yourself, but is actually wildly helpful for them, that builds those ties, that builds that community. And we have to show up for each other. We have to show up for one another in ways that will help people show up for us. So one of the things I might as well just sort of get into, I have all these like little stories I want to share, and they don't necessarily come together in a beautifully tied up bow at the end, but these are sort of like the little bits of beautiful, generous community that have come to my life recently. So, for one thing, my mother fell over the summer and she tripped and she called me and said, "Hi, I have very much injured my wrist and I need you to take me to the emergency room." And I said, "Great, I'll be right there." She's okay. But the headline is she's okay. But I had three different children in three different programs. And it was pickup time and I had to go bring my mother to the hospital. So the oldest one, I said, "Hey, kiddo, figure out a ride or walk home." He was fine. The middle one, I was going to pick up. I was literally on the way to get him when she called, so I grabbed him. But then my little one, who's 9, she needed to be picked up, and she is, of course, she's my anxious one. She's the one that like is not that great with change and is not going to be as flexible, and it's just she's the one like the of course the one that I can't figure out the pickup for. So the first thing I did when I needed to figure out how to get her accommodated for the afternoon, is I reached out to my core group of friends, which happens to also be my book club, and more on that as well. They are a group of women, it's 6 of us women who started a book club about 3 or 4 years ago. I actually kicked it off because I wanted to set a New Year's resolution for myself to read more. And I knew I would not read more unless I had some accountability. So I just texted a couple of friends and I said, "Would you guys be willing to do a book club with me?" This book club came together and ended up being something that is honestly one of the most special parts of my adult life, which is just this core group of women who are there for each other in every single way. We've created family events so that our husbands and children can hang out. We have these sort of annual traditions we do now. And unfortunately, we've also experienced enormous loss. One of these women lost her husband this summer, and we have been with her from the diagnosis of his cancer through all the treatments, and now, of course, into her new journey as a widow. And that probably is what has kicked off, right? My thinking about community and thinking about how this all comes together. But anyway, back to my story. I reached out to them. They were not able. They all had to pick up their kids at the exact same time. It wasn't the ideal situation, but it's so great to just have a group of people to reach out to, and they have come to my rescue and I have come to theirs many, many times. So that is like the initial thing is the core group of mom friends. Um, Next, I thought to myself, who is in Annabelle's program, my daughter's program, and how can I reach out to them? And I ended up reaching out to a mom who I know through advocacy, I know through the PTA, I know through volunteering. And this is sort of like the piece I want to talk about because this mom ended up picking up Annabelle, taking her home, hanging out with her all afternoon with her daughters, feeding her, having her watch a movie, and literally making Annabelle's day the best day, I think, of the summer. She came home, she came home from that day. I was like exhausted from having been in the emergency room and running around all the adrenaline that goes with caring for somebody who has to go to a hospital. And and Annabelle came home going, "Can I go back? Can I do that again?" And she had the greatest day. And I thought really hard about that entire exchange because it sort of has the two pieces. It has the showing up for others and then having that reciprocated to you. And it has my ability to receive help and to be open to that help. So when I reached out to this mother, we have had many conversations. We run into each other, at school events, and we both care deeply about our district and are aligned in our values, and so I know her, but we've never really hung out. This is not like this is more of an acquaintance, somebody who I respect, but it's not somebody I would normally call to pick up my kid. But I was in a pinch. And first of all, I think that this person, her name is Erin. I think that Erin is the kind of person that would have helped anybody. So that's for starters. But I also feel like there was this mutual understanding. She has seen me volunteer my time for the PTA. She has seen me go to Board of Ed meetings and speak. She has seen me show up for our community in ways that I know she respects and appreciates. And I think that when you have this mutual understanding of we are here and we are pouring our energy into this shared thing that benefits both of us and benefits our children and our families. That's when you create community. That's how you create community. And of course, I'm speaking about families and schools because this is what I'm talking about. And hopefully this is why you're listening, right? You're thinking about growing your family within community. Community is where you show up and you pour your energy in. And it doesn't have to be the same energy. She appreciates me going to board meetings and speaking on various topics. I don't know if the board appreciates it, but but Erin does. And I needed her in a pinch, and she not just, picked my kid up and dropped her off in a safe place, but she provided and stepped in as her mother in a moment of need, and it made a huge difference. The second part of that piece is being willing and able, having the skill and the confidence to accept help. And I could probably do a whole episode just on that, and maybe I will, because I have struggled with that. There's actually, maybe I can reframe this. I have experienced enormous growth in that area recently, like in my older parenting. I don't know how to phrase that to people who are pregnant or holding, little babies. But there is definitely like a shift from the baby phase into the older parenting phase of big kids that can sort of like walk and talk and be human beings. And and I have grown quite considerably in having the confidence in myself to know that it's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I need help in this area. It's okay to not be everything to everyone. It's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Can somebody help me with this? And while I'm saying that, I'm thinking, wow, that sounds really basic. Way to have a podcast episode about that. But also, that's not something I could have said at the beginning of my pregnancy. That's not something I could have said while I was giving birth or in the depths of postpartum. That is not something I could have said even like 5 or 6 years ago, pre-COVID. I could not have said that I was somebody who was good at recognizing when I need help or accessing that help or requesting that help, nor was I somebody who had even put any energy or intention into building a community, a village around myself. AKA, I was not showing up for other people in a generous, giving way because I was sort of, I think, drowning on my own. But there was a big missing piece. It was community, and it was missing because I both wasn't showing up, but also didn't have the confidence. And that's really what it takes. It's not the word I was intending to use, but I didn't have the confidence to say, hey, I don't have every single answer and every single resource to do this, and I'm not supposed to, and it's okay. I had this sort of like ego about me that said, I am mother. I am everything and everything to this baby. This is like I'm the center of the family, which is all very true. But it also like put me in this situation where I felt that asking for help would mean I wasn't enough. Asking for help would mean I didn't have it all figured out. Asking for help in a way would like rip open a seam that might completely expose how much I was struggling, how much I felt insecure, how much I felt thrown off by motherhood, how much I felt like I definitely did not have the answers, and how hard it was, and how even though I am and was a really confident mother, like I feel confident in my mothering. I feel really good about my parenting. I don't do it perfectly though, like I don't have every answer all the time. And I've evolved into a place where I can say that now. And I can say it and I've said it around enough trusted people and had it reflected back to me that I have like realized we all sort of don't have it figured out. And that's okay. And it helps me be more open to receiving. There's also this shift that has happened. And I think this is deeply tied to my Be Her Village work in trying to help parents get resources, get helpful actual resources through their gifting, through their parties, through their normal, American baby shower celebrations, is actually equipping them with what they'll need, which is support, which is people to hold your babies, people to help you figure out which way is up, to figure out all those things that feel intimidating in those early days of parenthood and early months and years, which, a day can feel like a year in early parenthood. Um, and I think part of what has also evolved for me is I have gone from feeling like I have failed as an individual or I am failing as an individual in moments to recognizing that I am completely worthy of being fully supported. And if there are gaps in my abilities or the resources I'm able to access, that's not an individual issue. That is a failure of community. Whoops. Sorry about that. That is a failure of community, not necessarily my immediate community. I'm not blaming the book club. But that's a failure of the larger societal community that should have the infrastructure to support mothers. And in our current society does not do a great job of. And we're going to talk more about that. I did mention in the last episode that we're going to talk a little bit about motherhood in 2025. I have a lot to say about that, but I felt like we need to start with talking about that community piece and the things that might be stopping us from community. So, there's this meme. Oh, it takes a village. Where's mine? I don't know if that's a meme. I don't know. You guys, I'm like 41. I don't know what memes are. Okay. But there's definitely this sort of sentiment out there. Let me say that. That's a better way to put it. There's a sentiment out there of, I was told there'd be a village. And I'm here to say there is a village, but you have to cultivate it. You have to grow it. You have to show up. And in small ways, you have to show up for other people in small, predictable, kind, generous ways. And some people will take that generosity and you'll never hear from them again. But some people will show up for you. Some people will feel that generosity and recognize that that's what they needed. And then there's a safety in giving to one another. There's almost like a pay it forward feeling to it, where instead of me helping you out in this way, dropping a meal or coming to sit with your toddler while you're trying to nurse your newborn, or, when you're having a really tough day, taking you for coffee or something, some small thing, instead of paying that back, there's a paying it forward because it's not always going to look the same. We don't all need the same things. That's actually the beauty of parenthood and community, is that we don't all need the exact same thing. We all have different skills and different strengths and different resources. And I think the message I want you to come away with is that community is vital. It is necessary. It feels good. And it starts with you. It does not start with other people. It starts with how you show up for others and how willing you are to receive. There's so much more to say, but I'm going to leave it there for today. And next week, we're going to talk about America and giving birth and having a baby in 2025 and financially what that looks like and the choices and impact that makes on a woman's life. I'm very excited for that conversation. Let me know your thoughts on this. This is an interesting format for me to sort of like sit down and share my ideas on something. And I know that there's tangents and I know there's like little loose ends that don't get wrapped up, but I really do enjoy having these conversations with myself to you. So shoot me a text, shoot me an email, let me know what you think. And if you found that this was helpful or enjoyable, I would love for you to share this with another person, give us a follow, give us a 5-star review. All of these things help us get more visibility with the people who need us. Thank you so much. Check out the show notes for links to Be Her Village and to be in touch with me. Grateful for all of you. Until next time.